Mr. President, every summer, the Congressional Budget Office produces a long-term budget outlook. This is the report that they produced yesterday, which is what they do every year. And it is a grim document indeed, not a document that should give us comfort, but should be a call to action, really, as to what we need to do about the financial future of our country. So this is what they found. Under 25 years, under the current policy, annual deficits would reach $5 trillion a year, or 17% of GDP, and would rise steadily thereafter. In other words, we'd have in 1 year a $5 trillion deficit. This year, we expect to spend $3.7 trillion total, including defense and Social Security and Medicare. CBO agrees that higher levels of federal government debt will burden American families and destroy economic growth. We've had studies on that. Rogoff-Reinhart reports. I think most economists agree with this principle, that when debts reach high levels, it pulls down the entire economy's ability to grow. According to the CBO data, over the next 20 years, high debt levels will result in $21 trillion less in economic output. This is a significant reduction in economic growth, and it's out of growth that we hope to be able to close the deficit gap. And without growth, we can't do it. But if we run our debt too high, it pulls down growth and makes us even more makes it even more difficult for us to maintain the growth levels we need to get our economy and our federal budget under control. And the idea that some people have that we can continue to borrow, and spend, and this will create a healthy, growing economy that can be sustained is absolutely false, I believe, truly. Congressional Budget Office agrees that we cannot wait. We cannot continue to delay action on the deficit. This is what they say in this report. Quote, waiting to address the long-term budgetary imbalance and allowing debt to mount in the meantime would be detrimental to future generations, close quote. We don't need to do things that are detrimental to future generations. We're already leaving them with more debt than we ever should, and we need to get off this path. I've told this story, but back in Marion, Alabama, I was at a house, and a World War II veteran, just less than 2 years ago, Mr. Wheeler, who's since passed away, was the last person to speak. And I was listening to people's views, and he said he served in he lived through the Depression, he served in World War II, he lived through the inflationary period in the 70s and 80s and all of that. And the problem we faced was not the high cost of living. The problem we face is the cost of living too high. And frankly, that's just what's happened. Individually, we've lived too high. We had to deleverage. Individual families are doing it. The government has lived too high. It's assumed too much debt. And there's no way out of it. No easy way. There's no free lunch. Nothing comes from nothing. Somebody pays. And so to get this debt under control, we've got to manage better than we ever have, in my opinion. I just truly believe that. And we can do it. We can manage better, but it's going to take leadership, beginning with the Chief Executive Officer of the United States of America, and Congress needs to be involved in the process too. So we've not had a budget here in the Senate. The Republican House has produced a budget, but the Senate Democrats have determinedly refused to bring a budget up in committee or to bring one on the floor. We're now 3 years without a budget. While we have trips to Las Vegas and conferences and tax credit loopholes to for children of illegal aliens, children who don't even live in the United States, are getting a $1,000 tax credit from Uncle Sam, and we can't get that fixed. That seems to be too hard to do, costing $4 billion a year. So these are the kind of things that Americans need to be aware of, need to be focused on. If we do so, there are a number of options that would allow us to get the country on a sound path. And we do some things that will create growth without debt, such as tax simplification that creates more growth, such as eliminating every regulation that does not serve the national interest and benefit the economy, but adds cost to our productive capability in America and delays production of energy or delays construction of factories and businesses. Eliminate those regulations that don't make sense. We work hard to produce more American energy, keeping our wealth at home. We reduce the amount of debt we're running up, so we're sending fewer dollars, fewer billions of dollars abroad every year, year after year after year, just to pay the interest on the debt we've run up. There are a lot of things we can do that would create jobs and growth and productivity gains in America that won't add to our debt. And we've got to find those things. And we've got to tighten our belt across the board in the Congress, in the White House, and down to every agency and department and government entity that exists in this country and around the world. And if everybody does that, we will surprise ourselves how much progress we can make. And I think it's not too late for us to reverse the course we're on. Mr. President, I thank the chair and would yield the floor.